Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Michael's Record Collection, where we talk about great music with the people who make it and the people who love it. I am very excited to be joined today by Nick DiVirgilio. Nick, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to get into this new DiVirgilio, Morse, and Jennings album. Sophomore comes out on November 10th on Inside Out Music. I've been enjoying that. Love the Crosby, Stills, Nash vibes from you guys. Um, Great follow up to the Troika album. But I want to start out like I always do by asking my guests, what was your first favorite record?
Oh, first favorite record. Probably physical graffiti, Zeppelin, physical graffiti. Because when I was about 6 years old or so, maybe seven, my brother turned me on to all the music I listened to when I was a young kid. He's 8 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And The Rover off of that record was the first rock tune I ever learned on drums.
Mm.
And I used to beg him. He was in a cover band, and I went and would sit in and play that song with the guys when I was that young. So that was probably my first favorite record.
Awesome. That's a great choice. So tell me how about telling me how you got started with drums? Because obviously you were playing from a very young age.
There's no real reason other than the fact because I have musicians sort of in my family who played for fun, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And I was doing the typical thing you hear about kids do, beating on pots and pans. And my dad got me like a toy sort of drum kit, like a Sears and Roebuck sort of thing that had paper heads that I just trashed really quickly. And then I was 5 in November, and then that December Christmas came, and Santa Claus brought me a 1967 Blue Sparkle Ludwig kit, and I've been playing ever since. I mean, and I just played. I don't know why. I liked it. I obviously had very patient parents who decided to buy me a kit, and yeah, and it just came to me naturally. I didn't have any lessons until I was 18 and went to music school. So I just listened. Somehow I was able to figure out beats, and I'd watch people play and that kind of stuff. And I had
Mm-hmm.
some advice here and there, but not no proper study until I was older. And yeah, I just played.
Wow. Well, that's great. So you're basically self-taught with some instruction along the way.
Well, since like music school, I mean, I also played brass instruments when I was a kid, again, because my brother played trumpet. So I took the trumpet after he got tired with it.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, and that was, grade school into high school and stuff. So through there, I learned how to read music through playing those instruments. So I learned how to see rhythms and knew what everything was. But from actually drum study, from high school, after high school, going to music school, and on to today, I study like crazy. I love all the education part of it all, and I dove in deep from that point forward. Just when I was a kid, maybe I didn't have people pointing me in the right direction to study and stuff, and I just wanted to go home after school and play the records and things. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the path I took.
Gotcha. All right. So let's fast forward a little bit ahead. Tell me how you met the Morse brothers and became a member of Spock's Beard.
I met them at a jam session in Los Angeles, where I'm born and raised. It was a blues jam. I think it was the Universal Bar and Grill in the San Fernando Valley, and they had jam nights. I forget what night of the week it was. And I showed up, and you put your name on a board to sit in, and they called up me, Neil, and Al. I don't know if there was a fourth person or not. I don't. If there was, I apologetically don't remember that person. But it was the three of us. We played Hendrix or something like that, and that's how we met. Yeah, we exchanged phone numbers and stuff, and I went to a networking jam thing that Alan put on a couple of days later, and soon after that, they said, "Hey, we're trying to start this band called." We weren't called Spocks at the beginning, but they were trying to, because Neil had written the light. He had all the music for the light already written and demoed, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to put something together to play progressive rock. I go, "What progressive rock? Who plays that in the '90s?" And we did, we
You
did,
sure did.
because I love that music, and it was just it was so dead. But I realized after meeting those guys that there was still a market for it, and a lot of people who really liked that music still in that time, and that's how we got started.
Now, did you meet them before you met Kevin Gilbert?
Uh, yes, before.
Okay.
Yes.
And how did you all connect with Kevin Gilbert?
I met Kevin at again randomly at a local ski resort outside of LA because I took a cover gig with a group of guys that wired up his recording studio, and they had a band, and he showed up and we exchanged numbers, and then he called me about 6 months later to do the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway at Prague Fest. And so that's how I joined Kevin's band and got involved with him. And we had already recorded The Light at that point when we got into our second record, Beware of Darkness. Well, Kevin mastered The Light. That's right. He did the mastering for us, and then we asked him to see if he'd be up for mixing the second record, and he got halfway done before he passed away.
Hmm. Yeah, I had Dave on the show a few weeks ago. He was telling me how Kevin would throw away the one of the bass tracks that was recorded so that you had an extra track to work with. And he would just use the track from that was from the mic. So it was an interesting conversation. You were in Spock's for quite a while, and in very similar fashion to Genesis, the lead singer leaves after the big double album, and the drummer comes out and becomes the lead singer. That's you, and you go into Feel Euphoria, which, by the way, is coming out in November on vinyl for the first time. So very excited about that.
It sounds killer on vinyl. It sounds better than the when it on CD. It really does. It brought that record to life. But go ahead, keep going. Okay. I'm excited that's coming out.
I am too. And I just was curious as to what that period was like for you between the time Neil announced he was leaving and the time you started work on Feel Euphoria. I'm sure there were some doubts and some things that crept in, but like Dave said, that all of you guys kind of had your own opinions and ideas of how Spock's Beard should sound moving forward. What was your idea?
Well, I just knew I didn't want the band to end, So, and it was now we were going to have the opportunity to let more of our voices be heard in the band. Neil is a prolific songwriter. Obviously, he writes, he's got just a ton of music in his head all the time, and it worked well for Spock's all those years. But it was now going to be the point where we had to come up with music. If we wanted to keep the band going, we had to, write the music ourselves. And I've been writing for a long time, and I had a bunch of ideas and stuff. So I don't know if I set out like I want us to sound like this or not. I just wanted the band to keep going. And, we had fans that we had built, a fan base that we had built up over the years. So we wanted to keep them happy too and bring them along with us. So I think we knew we wanted to kind of keep the vibe of what we had with Neil in the band, but also try and now show what we could do as well and take it to the next step. And I think all that really did was like we rocked a little bit harder, I think, when in sort of my time as the singer. It was a little bit edgier music wise.
Yeah.
But I think that it naturally went there. It was the songs we were written, we were writing at the time. And but no real like I want us to sound like this. Yeah. We were just kind of doing our same thing that we had normally done, just with us as the writers.
You wrote a very emotional note to the fans when you decided to leave Spock's Beard to take the Cirque du Soleil gig. How difficult was that for you after fronting that band for four albums and being a part of that band since the beginning?
Well, it was tough, of course. And when I first joined Cirque, the reason thankfully I got the Cirque gig, there was no work. I was just not working. I was still in Tears for Fears technically and all that. And I had these great names in my resume, but nobody was working enough for me to pay my bills. I was hustling like I had always been. Spock's only toured every so often, so it wasn't enough to cover everything. And thankfully, the Cirque gig sort of fell in my lap. And originally, it was supposed to just be for a year, these year contracts, and it wasn't going to be like we were going to go off and join it for 5 years that I did end up doing. But once I started in Cirque and we kind of kept going, it was like too good of a gig to leave at that point. And it was something I needed to do for my family. I needed to support my family better and make more money and all of those things. So I couldn't make the guys wait around. It wasn't like I wanted to leave Spock's Beard, but I couldn't expect them to wait for 5 years until I was available to do a record, that kind of stuff. It wasn't fair to them.
Sure.
And they wanted to keep going. So it was a step that I needed to make.
Yeah. Getting back to Kevin for a minute, obviously, after his passing, the estate asked you to helped complete the Shaming of the True album, another album that just came out recently on a vinyl reissue. Fantastic sounding record. What was that like for you? Because it had to be hard to emotionally with Kevin being gone and having to go through this vast array of recordings and notes that he left behind. What was that like for you to put together Shaming?
Well, it was a labor of love for sure. I mean, it was emotional for sure, but it was like, the guy taught me a lot. He really took me under his wing for the short amount of time that I spent with him. And just taught me about recording and just about so many things. So I knew that he should, prior to him passing, we had started working on Shaming because he just sort of had to be convinced that, dude, this music is too good. You got to do something. We can't just leave this on in the background where nobody hears it. They've got a lot of great shit here and a great story and all that stuff. And he finally got convinced, probably not solely by me, but his manager and other people too, that, okay, let's see what you could do with this whole thing. So we'd gone in and recorded drums properly for Certifiable Number One Smash and a couple other tunes and there's a couple other things. And so it was like moving in that direction. And then, unfortunately, he just, what happened. So we knew that, I think between me and John Rubin, his manager, stuff, like it was music that had to be heard. It was just too good not to be heard. So we just decided to, with John Coonaberty, figure out what was there and how could we salvage it? What could we do to enhance it and turn it into a record? And thankfully, they were willing to do it and put up whatever money we needed to do it. Wasn't, and we finished it.
Yeah. I'm glad you did. And I think I can speak for a lot of Kevin fans when I say that. And it's funny because you were part of that, the Giraffe Lies Down on Broadway recording, the doing the Lamb live with Kevin. And you've also have your own Lamb Lies Down on Broadway version, your Rewiring Genesis album. What is it about that album specifically that's kind of been a part of your career and part of your life?
Well, I will say that my version of Rewiring Genesis is going to be re-released.
Really?
Yes, next year. Nice. No official date yet, but it's been remixed and retweaked, and we have strings from Abbey Road and guest artists, and it's better than it was. It's just enhanced from what it was. So that's coming out, and I mean, I love that record. It's one of my favorite that they ever did, and I never really set out to do these sort of things. I mean, it happened to be when I did Prog Fest with Kevin, it was their 20th anniversary of the Lamb. I forget exactly. So, and it happened to have that progressive rock festival in LA. And he was a Genesis head and he wanted to try and do it. So that's what got me to working with Kevin. So it was a very special meaning there because after doing that gig, he asked me to join his band and everything like that. So, and then the rewiring thing happened because I was hanging out with my friend Mark Hornsby, who's helped do the rewiring thing. And we were just screwing. We tried to do like a bluegrass version of a Genesis tune. I think we were drunk when we were talking about it, but I don't know. And so we actually did it. And we did the Colony of Slipperman with a bunch of Nashville musicians who had never heard that song. They knew Genesis, but never knew or heard that particular tune.
Mm-hmm.
Probably never even knew what the Lamb was. And it just turned out so well with these people who gave it such a fresh feel. They were just reading the music and being their creative selves. And boy, it was like, man, what if we did the whole record? Can we do that? Is that crazy to do the whole record? That much music? And so we just went, I mean, it was a crazy idea that we went for because that first recording turned out so well and way beyond our expectations.
Yeah, it did come out really well and very different. It's great when people put a new spin on an old classic rather than just copying it verbatim. So it was an interesting release, and I'm great. It's great that it's getting a new release. I'm hoping that means vinyl as well.
Oh yeah, it just never had it. It never got any legs because there was some things that went wrong when it first got put out and stuff and blah. Don't need to go into that here, but it never got its proper due. I don't think. Yeah. So now that we've tweaked it a little bit and just gave it a little bit more life, I think it's it'll get a little bit, and it's the 50th anniversary of that record next year. So it's good timing to try and get it back out there. And, at least it'll be out in the world so people can enjoy it.
Yeah. Speaking of Genesis, you actually played on a Genesis album, and not a lot of people can say that. So you were a part of the Calling All Stations recording, and some of your work is on there along with Near Z, and that had to be kind of a strange thing for both you and Near Z, having another drummer record. And can you just tell me what that process was like and how Genesis reached out to you, or how you got that gig?
I was on the road with Tears for Fears and happened to be in the UK. And Kevin reached out to me saying that he heard that Genesis, that Phil quit Genesis and they might be looking for drummers. And then he said, man, you should go find Hit and Run Management's office and see if you can get an audition while you're there. And I did. And I invited him to the Tears for Fears gig, and I only had the light. That was the only piece of music I had as was recording me on it. And I gave him the CD, and Kevin actually wrote a handwritten letter to Peter Gabriel about me, thinking that maybe Peter was going to be in the band, do it or something. I don't know why he wrote it to him, but he did. Anyway, so I reached out to them, and then Nick Davis called me on a Sunday morning. I don't know, but it's 5-6 months later, asking me to send more music, other things that I recorded on. So I did. I just sent them demos and stuff I played with Kevin and whatever. Then they said, yeah, we want you to come out and audition properly. And they flew me out there, and then I got the gig. I mean, it was totally surreal and nothing I ever expected that ever happened in my life, but it did.
Well, that's it. I think that album is, I think of it as a great start for that era of the band that never went anywhere beyond that. I think it's a very underrated record. I think the songs are pretty good, and that it showed promise for, continued albums from that lineup. But Tony and Mike just weren't interested after seeing what the ticket sales were at the concerts, I guess. But anyway, I mean, that's a great feather to have in your cap. And
yeah,
and it also brings up the question of, how did you meet Roland Orzabal and get sort of involved with Tears for Fears?
It's all through, everything sort of stemmed through meeting Kevin. My whole career changed after I met Kevin Gilbert, and I say that truthfully. He was my break in the music business. Through meeting Kevin, I met the drummer Brian McLeod, who had done a bunch with Kevin, and who was also Tears for Fears drummer prior to me. Kevin and myself and Brian started this band Caviar, the three of us. Mm-hmm. We just started writing songs in Kevin's studio and jamming and coming up with this stuff. And that was really starting to take shape and something they really wanted to pursue and see if they could make it happen. It was a weird, a sort of crazy industrial sounding music at the time. 9 Inch Nails was big, and Marilyn Manson, all this kind of crap was going strong in that particular time of the 90s. And they wanted to kind of ride that wave too. And they were really, and it was a lot of fun to do that with them. Let me tell you, because I was playing bass and different instruments and stuff. It was really cool. Well, it came time to do that Raúl and Kings of Spain tour. And Brian didn't want to do the tour. He wanted to keep working on Caviar. So he recommended me. And I got the gig basically sight unseen. I didn't have to audition. I sent a couple things in, and Brian recommended me so highly to Roland Orzabal. I got the job. And then I was in Tears for Fears for 15 years after that. So it was all came through Kevin and Brian McLeod, of course. He was a sweetheart of a person and an amazing player.
I'm happy to say that I did get to see you with Tears for Fears. You guys played this big downtown show in Orlando. It was a free concert, and it was a really good show. Bruno was there, but I didn't get to meet up with him then.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was great. Last question before we get into the DiVirgilio, Morse and Jennings, I promise. But you're also in another fantastic progressive rock band that I love, is Big Big Train. How did you hook up with Big Big Train? And don't tell me this one was also through Kevin.
No, this was through Rob Aubrey, who was Rob was our front of house engineer for Spock's Beard Forever. Did all our live shows and stuff like that. And I've done a million sessions with Rob. He's got a studio in Southampton, the UK, and God, we've recorded 400 or 500 songs together over the years, I think. And he had been working with the Big Big Train boys for a long time, and they needed a drummer for the Difference Machine record. And he said, you guys should use Nick. So I did that session, and from that, when it came time to do the next record, the Underfall Yard, they got David Longdon had joined them at that point, and basically they just asked me, "Do you want to be in the band?" And I said, "Yeah." I thought it was good. It was great music, and there wasn't a huge time commitment. It was just basically just going to be a recording band. We make records. We're not trying to play live. We just want to see what we can do and do this sort of unapologetic English progressive rock stuff. We don't care. Songs are going to be 20 minutes long. We don't care. We're just going to make the music we want to make. And I said, cool. And it was really creative music. Lots of great players and fun stuff. And I was very free to drum and just kind of do my thing. And yeah. And then now it's my band. I've been in the band ever since.
Yeah. Underfall's a fantastic album too, as well. But that's great. You've had a very interesting and varied career. And now you find yourself in DiVirgilio, Morse, and Jennings. Obviously, you've worked with Neil since Neil left the band, and a few times in the past. And now, how did this trio start? Was it you and Neil, and then you got Ross? Was it Neil and Ross, and then they got you? How did that work?
No, it was sort of me and Neil. Neil had the idea to start with. He wanted to do a sort of Crosby, Stills, Nash sort of singer-songwriter sort of thing, because me and him and Al Morris, his brother, like we back in the early days, we used to, like, on tour buses after gigs, we would stay up all night long singing Beatles and CSN tunes and stuff and do the 3-part harmony. So we've been doing that together for a while. And he had a bunch of tunes. He goes, "I'm thinking about this, and would you be into it? And maybe we could find a third person. Who do you think that should be?" So we threw out a lot of names at the beginning, and then Ross's name came up. I think Neil threw it out first. I forget exactly how his name came up, but he did. And then we reached out to Ross, and that was just sort of the genesis of it all. That's kind of how it all started. And Ross was up for it. And I had honestly never heard Ross in this setting, this kind of style of music. I've known him from Haken for a long time, of course.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome, but I didn't know Ross had this sort of thing in him. And he's fantastic, man. It just ended up being a great mesh of styles and vibes and people, and it's just worked out.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. And I think a lot of people didn't realize when they saw the three of your names together that what kind of music you guys were going to be playing. So I think it caught a lot of people off guard when you guys put out Troika. You can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe Troika had only one co-written song on it. I think everybody had their own. So is that what you guys do? Do you guys bring your own songs to the group?
Yeah. Well, I think the point of it was to make it. I mean, listen, Neil can write 8 million records a year. He's got so much music in his head all the time. So it could easily be all of Neil's songs, of course. But it was, then that would have been basically a Neil solo record. That's not what this was about. This was about trying to come up with something where we all sort of threw our stuff in the hat to see how it meshed. And after we've kind of got the vibe going, and definitely after we heard how our voices meshed together, it was, so it's like it's got a few of my tunes, a few of Ross's tunes, a few of Neil's tunes, and it's just sort of like that kind of thing because it gives it a little bit of different flavor throughout the record. You kind of go through a little bit of a path getting from song to song, and that's because of the different flavors you're getting from everybody. Mm-hmm. And once we got the ball rolling and we kind of realized, oh man, this could really work, and everybody's tunes, like the way Ross writes is different, obviously, from me and Neil, and he's got his own thing, but it really lends itself well to the 3-part harmonies, and he's super creative with his melodies and his lyric ideas and stuff too. So it's working out pretty well like that, and it's nice because it's like a real collective thing as far as the writing is concerned.
Yeah. Now, do you guys send in clips or send in your parts of files, or do you get together to physically record this together?
No, this has all been file shared. It'd be great to do it one day all together in the same room, but so far it's just been Zoom calls and FaceTiming and Dropbox links and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, how many versions of your vocals would you say on average you put down for one of these DMJ songs? Because there are different versions where different people's voices are, maybe someone's the lead on one, and then a different version where they may be pushed more to the background.
I mean, a lot of the times you kind of it's experimenting and stuff like this, kind of seeing what's working. Usually Neil sings lead on his tunes and I'm singing lead on my tunes, and and same with Ross. Ross took a stab at a couple of Neil's tunes for the new records coming out. So there's a couple of bonus tracks that are there. And it just, I have a song on the record where everybody takes a lead line. That's a really fun thing to do, especially when you have guys that can sing like Neil and Ross. So it's a really fun way to be creative with how you're blending things around, and and it's nice to, as a writer, to think as an arranger too, and you utilize what the strengths of those guys to do what they do best.
So this thing starts out with Hard to Be Easy, wonderful vocal memories. What sounds like Neil's playing the acoustic guitar based on previous times that I've heard Neil play live solo shows. Um, how do you guys, does Neil arrange the instrumentation, or do you guys all just kind of pitch in your own ideas?
Everybody does everything, really.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of democratic, might not be the right word, but it's just like, that's his tune. If like that particular tune, he sent in the demo and we added some stuff. And then, there's things I've played bass on some songs where they send me stuff, and you just, whatever inspires you, we would, or same for them, whatever inspires any of us, we would just put down on tape and see if it worked, and see if it worked for the guy who wrote the song. I've played bass on a couple of tunes that didn't make the record, and same with the other guys, playing a few things here and there that we thought, well, maybe not so much. Why don't you do this? I mean, so it's just a matter of trial and error and seeing what people like, but it's kind of open to whatever. Mm-hmm. And if the person that wrote the tune thinks that that's cool and they want it, then that's what stayed. And if not, we tried something else.
Got it. So, as we're recording this interview, you guys recently just came out with Tiny Little Fires as the second single off of this. Sounds to me like this is a Ross vocal song. It sounds like, is that you playing chimes or a xylophone or something on that thing?
Yes and no. I mean, there might be a little bit of keyboard thing. Ross originally came up with that thing on a little toy xylophone. And for the recording, I had a glockenspiel at home, and I laid that down. But he also had something in his place in England. So I think I forget how it got all mixed in there, but it's probably a little bit of glockenspiel mixed with a xylophone, maybe even a keyboard sound too, but that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, does it surprise you when you get a song like Right Where You Should Be, which is Neil going country?
Not really, because he's written stuff like that. I've known the guy for a long time. He's written that kind of stuff for many, many years. So it's right in his wheelhouse, in my opinion.
So you guys have all these songs that are kind of right out of Laurel Canyon, really Crosby, Stills, and Nashy, like you said. And then all of a sudden in the middle of the album, you hit us with Mama. And what a left turn this song is after all of those types of songs. Was there any discussion about whether or not that song fit with the rest of the album, or did you guys just love it so you just went ahead and used it?
Well, I like on Troika, there's that song Secondhand Sons on Troika, which is sort of the rocker of that record. Neil felt we needed something with a little bit of grit on that record, and I wanted to have something on this record too. And I wrote that thing. It's a tribute to mothers. That's totally what it is. It's about I'm a mama's boy at heart, and it's just calling out how moms are the shit. And that's kind of what came up. I sent the demo in. I made a demo that was not far off from what the finished product was, but then Neil put the talk box on it, and it was just like, it just kind of grew organically. And then once those guys sang those background parts, it's like, man, this is totally cool. It really works. And I think it just shows the creativity of the three of us and how we can take things in a few different directions. And it leaves a lot of space for future records too. I mean, but everything is all based around this 3-part harmony thing that we have together. So we could do really soft stuff like Crosby, Stills, Nash-esque kind of things, but then we can kind of go in a little different direction, like Tiny Little Fires is a little bit proggy, and Mama's a little bit rocky. So I think it just it shows the creativity and the musicianship of the guys in the band. And it's just fun, man. It's just fun. And this band really has no rules. We're doing this for fun, just trying to make some great music and entertain the folks and have some cool things to listen to for you people out there. And we're just, there's no rules to this. We're just kind of going for it.
Yeah, well, fun is the key word, because it does sound like you guys are having a blast making this. I think even on one or two of the tracks, we can hear you laughing while you're singing. and
Oh yeah.
it sounds like you guys are just having a great time. Um, it, again, I'm not afraid. That's the one where it just sounds like you're just having a blast. You got to laugh during the vocals on that one, and it's fun. I like. I love the way this thing is tracked because there's some. I think the strongest songs are kind of in the beginning, middle, right in the middle, and at the end. I think you guys have kind of hit the highs and lows of that set list perfectly. You have Walking on Water is a fun one for me. It's got this crazy 70s vibe that I can't quite identify, but it's got a little melting pot of sounds from like the Doobie Brothers, America, Seals and Crofts, maybe some Yes, even like Sparks-esque The Who is in there. Tell me a little bit about that song.
I love it. That's great. And well, that's a Ross tune. So it's got his sort of stamp. He's a real creative writer, that guy. And I didn't realize until I even started this band that Ross loves country music and pop music and stuff, even though he's in this hardcore sort of proggy metal band. But he's just a great musician. So you're right. I think once we started that tune, I'm influenced by everything all those bands you just said. I love all that kind of stuff. I'm sort of a child of that era. And those kinds of things are just sort of in my blood from listening to all those songs and the millions of cover gigs I've done over the years. So yeah, it just sort of morphed in that direction with the vibe. And you're not the first person. A few people have said that has a kind of a Doobie Brothers thing to it too, which is great. I think it's great.
Very cool, very cool. So what are your thoughts when somebody buys this record and listens to this thing start to finish? What do you want them to take away from that experience?
Oh, I just want them to have an enjoyable listening experience. Nice songs. Feel sad when they hear a sad song, happy when they hear a happy song, and just enjoy the listening and enjoy the tunes and have a good time. That's it. If they take away that it was good, maybe, find their favorites and play them over and over again and share it with their friends, I'd be happy as a clam.
So you're having a big year. You got the new DiVirgilio, Morse Jennings album that's coming out in November. You got a vinyl reissue of Feel Euphoria. And before Christmas, sometime a new Big Train album coming out. What can you tell us about that? I know you guys like to keep things under wraps.
Well, it's not coming out before Christmas. No, there's a Big
Okay.
Train record early next year. Yeah.
Okay.
The date's not set yet, but it'll be early next year. We're playing Cruise to the Edge in March, so I'm sure we're trying to plan something around that. But Missing Big Train is my main focus musically. Band I'm super dedicated to, and we're just trying to grow that brand as much as possible. We did our big European tour, our first big European tour, just this last month, which was great, and it's time to share that experience with the world more. And we're finally going to play on this side of the pond, which I'm ecstatic about because I think they're traveling this way finally. I don't have to take the international flight for once. So just that's what's happening.
Awesome. Well, have you guys already put that album to bed as far as recording it? Is it in the mixing stage now, or? All right.
Yeah.
So it's, that's the thing is when I talk to you guys, when I talk to any artist, and it's usually about an album that's coming out, like the new DMJ album, but you guys finished that a while ago. What are you working on right now?
I'm doing a re-release of my Rewiring Genesis. I mentioned that. So that's coming out next year. So finishing off that. Always writing new music. And I mean, there's plans, we're thinking like Big Train. We're thinking about the next record already, even the one past the one that's not released yet, because it's the best band I've ever been in as far as planning ahead and seeing that sort of 5-year plan sort of take shape and that kind of stuff. It's really the way it's organized is really cool. So always thinking about that. I have some more gigs with Mr. Big coming early next year to finish off their little farewell tour thing. So yeah, I got a lot coming on and just always writing new stuff for the next thing. I might be starting a little project with my daughter Sophia, which would be cool. I'd like to make another Nick DiVirgilio solo record too, but it's just all in time. And I'm hoping that DMJ goes on the road here in the not too distant future. I mean, I really would like to play these tunes in front of people. I think it would be a really nice, enjoyable evening of music and really fun as well. So I'm pushing for that quite a bit.
That would be cool. And this type of music might get you involved, getting you invited to some new festivals that you guys haven't been playing before.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. How have audiences been receptive to to Big Big Train with the new vocalist?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Everybody was super supportive. And I mean, big crowds, small crowds, didn't matter, man. We had great energy at every gig. And Alberto's great. He really is a great front man. He knows how to connect with the crowd, and he performs well. And it's a great, I mean, the musicianship in the band is just on fire right now. Everybody playing their butts off. So it's really exciting time as far as that's concerned. And we had great reactions at every show we played.
All right. Nick DiVirgilio of DiVirgilio, Morse, and Jennings. Follow up to Troika is called Sophomore, very appropriately named. That's coming out November 10th and on Inside Out Music. Very excited about that. Of course, the Feel Euphoria album as well on vinyl. Looking forward to that. Rewiring Genesis next year, early next year, new Big Big Train. Fantastic stuff, man. It's been great talking to you. Great catching up with you. Appreciate your time. And thank you so much. I wish you nothing but the best of luck with all of these releases.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.